Hi, I'm Fred Schultz, and I'm running for president. I'm an attorney. For those of you who are worried, look, you don't only have to choose between those two candidates just because they're from a major party. You don't have to choose with those other two who aren't so great either. You can write in anyone you want, and I'm asking you to write me in, please. You need to make this video go viral quick. We have 1 month, or we all are going to lose. Everyone in the US and everyone in the world. Now, let me explain quickly what my platform is. I want to end the wars. I want to end the war on drugs and all victimless crimes and free the millions in jail for them and wrongfully arrested for them every year and pardon 70 million people. I want to tax Trump, tax the wealthiest 1% and small percentage of net worth. And then have things like forgive student loans, free housing for the homeless, free food for the starving. We have millions, 50 million people in this country starving every day. And that count is probably low. I want to forgive all student loans, have free college, public and private, free med school, and then triple the number of doctors, free law school. I want to create 50 million new jobs by spending $5 trillion on the infrastructure. That includes roads, bridges, free internet. And yes, I believe we need walls on both borders, but not to block people. I mean, just to know who's coming in. I think we need more immigrants, not less than we take in currently. I want to let everybody who's here stay. Every one of the 11 million. Now, approximately 4 million of them are from south of our border, and they're refugees of this war on drugs. I want to stop all this killing. I want to stop all this murder. I want to stop all this torture. I want to stop all these accidental overdoses. I want to stop these high prices of drugs. I want to stop all of these problems. I mean, we have 10,000 people in the U.S. Murdered. Well, 12,000 murdered, 10,000 with people with guns. These are mostly due to drug cases. I mean, this is drugs. This is a war. By having this, quote, war on drugs, you raise the value of these drugs, and then you have addicts, or you have, warring gang members fighting for turf. And then south of our border, you have all these, quote, cartels. I mean, it's horrible. It's horrible. We're wasting all this effort, all these millions of people, arresting we're arresting about 15 million people a year in this country. Probably 12 million of them are for victimless crimes. These crimes are it's not just immoral, they're unconstitutional. They're unconstitutional. We have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in this country. We have a right to exercise our religion as we see fit. Most of these are, quote, morals laws that are just, impinging, they're enforcing one form of religion on us. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and we've got to end it. Now you could say, oh, well, doesn't Gary Johnson and Jill Stein want to end the war on drugs? Doesn't Hillary talk about criminal justice reform? Well, let's start with Hillary. Hillary still wants to keep arresting these 15 million people a year. She just wants to, what I call, catch and release. She wants to let them stay in jail a lot less time. But she hasn't said she'll pardon the 70 million wrongfully convicted. She has not said that she won't make people go to jail. She just wants less jail time. Well, you know what? We already do a form of catch and release. Why do I say that? Because we have 2 million people wrongfully in jail out of 2.2 million. We have 15 million arrests a year. Maybe 12, 13 million of those are wrongful. So we're obviously mostly catching and releasing. That still isn't okay. When asked about legalization, you know what Hillary said? She said, quote, these people still have to be processed through the system. Well, what does that mean? These people. Who's that? Citizens still have to be processed through the system? What the hell? There's no compassion in arresting people, stealing their homes, strip searching them, making them bend over, shoving a flashlight up every hole of theirs, looking for drugs. It's disgusting. It's horrible. That's not compassion. That's evil. That's evil. As far as these other candidates, Gary Johnson, he says in one breath that he wants to end the war on drugs, and in the next breath, he says that he wants to only legalize marijuana. And then there's the other problem, is he and Gary Weld, neither of them, they both believe that these laws are constitutional. Also, they say, oh, well, it's up to the states. Let the states do what they want. Well, I'll tell you what most of the states will do. Nothing. Or if they legalize weed, they'll keep all the other drugs illegal. Well. Oh, and what about Jill Stein? Jill Stein says, well, I believe marijuana should be legal, but all the rest of the drugs, we would put them to a committee of doctors to decide. Well, you know what? I have a right. We have rights, human rights, to do to our bodies as we see fit. And you don't have to call them drugs. You could just as well call them foods. These are foods. Most of them, these are drugs or foods, whatever you want to call them, that have been used for thousands of years by humanity. Thousands of years. By the way, this has nothing, as I said, to do with health. This has to do with religion. You know what the number one deadly drug in this United States, in the world, is? Recreational drug? One guess. You're not going to guess it. I guarantee you're not going to guess the number one deadly drug in this world. You know what it is? Responsible for 2/3 of all deaths? One guess. I can hear your guesses. Tobacco, right? You're saying? Alcohol, you're saying, right? Well, you know what it is? Oh, I hear you. Heroin. No. You know what it is? Sugar. Sugar is responsible for 2/3 of all the deaths in the world. It's responsible for 36 million deaths worldwide a year and 1.6 million deaths a year in the United States out of 2.6 million total. So 1.7 million. Yes, sugar is the number one cause of death. But is it legal? Oh, yes. Am I saying we should make sugar illegal? No. But I don't think anyone should do it. And by the way, sugar, it doesn't just include real sugar. It includes any form of sugar, any form of sweetener. And I'm sorry to tell you, it includes non-sugar sweeteners. Even non-chemical sweeteners like stevia, because they trick your body into thinking that it's sugar and it's not. Anyway. Let's get on with this. You know what the number 2 killer in this country is with 500,000 deaths? Tobacco. You know what the number 3 killer in this country is with 90,000 deaths? Alcohol. You know how many deaths all drugs cause? Illegal and legal combined. I mean, opium, opiates, everything else. 47,000. You know, you've heard about this opium epidemic? Yeah, I have too. You know how many people have died of synthetic opiates in this last year? Maybe 7,000. Look, every death is horrible. We must try to prevent every death. But let's keep in mind, we have over 30 million depressed people in this country. We have about 100 million people in this country suffering from chronic, moderate to severe pain. 100 million people suffering from moderate to severe chronic pain. These people, many of them, are just treating their pain or their depression with legal or illegal drugs. Most of these legal drugs are just synthetic versions of the natural illegal drugs, like the opiates. Look, how do we then end all of this addiction? How do we stop all this addiction? Because I'll tell you, to end the crime, most of the crime in our country, And that's about 10,000 murders a year. Plus you have tens of thousands of murders a year in the countries south of our border due to these drug wars. And that's causing these, 4 million refugees to run for their lives. But so how do you end most of this addiction? Number one, you want to give people jobs. My program, which involves pardoning 70 million people and creating 50 million new jobs, more if we need them. But we will, we will have jobs for everyone who wants them. Have jobs for everyone. Now you're going to say, how can you do this? How can you do this? Oh, by the way, and also free health care. And that would include free drug treatment, of course. Of course. You know what? Because we've been focusing so much on prosecuting these victimless crimes like drugs, you know what percentage of people who want drug treatment get it? 4%. 4%. Maybe less. About 4%. We want free drug treatment for everyone who needs it. We need free health care for everyone. Now, how do we save money on health care? I have a few simple solutions. Number one, we go to what they call single payer. As I said, to make this work, we're going to have 2 to 3 times the number of doctors we have right now. Everyone knows this. I've spoken to hospital administrators. Every hospital administrator I've spoken to knows this. You need 2 to 3 times the number of doctors you have right now. We'll make medical school free, law school free. We need more lawyers. You can say, don't we have enough lawyers? No. The problem is they all go to work for corporations, and now there aren't enough corporate jobs. So you have unemployed lawyers. On the other hand, you have millions of Americans who need a lawyer, who are fighting for their housing every day. They don't have a lawyer, and you know what happens? They go homeless. We have millions of, we don't even have now, we have a right to a lawyer in a criminal case. We're not even enforcing that right anymore. We're making millions of people go without defense in criminal cases. And you know what else happens? Because we're focusing so much on these victimless crimes, we are not prosecuting the real crimes, like rape. You know that there's about 500,000 untested rape kits in this country going back 50 years. You know how, 30 years, 40 years. Yeah. You know what a rape kit is? After you're raped, you go to the hospital, they collect evidence, they make you spread your legs, they take photos, they stick a Q-tip up your holes. That would all be worth it if they then tested the DNA they found in these rape kits, they call them, these evidence packets. If they tested them and then went looking for the people whose DNA they find, because rape is the number one serial crime in this nation and world, and it's predicted, it's estimated that it's the most underreported crime, and that there's about 2 million rapes a year in our nation, up to 2 million. But these cases are not prosecuted because they're not testing these rape kits. Also, it's estimated that only a small percentage of any crime with a victim is ever caught. Why? They're not trying hard enough. Only a small percentage of murders are ever solved. Only a small percentage of kidnappings are ever solved. Rapes, robberies. I think we're looking at, for all of these, tops about 15% solving rate. I mean, this is horrible. And of course there's no jail space for these people, but, really also we have, we're giving people too long jail terms. Also, a lot of the people convicted of real crimes are convicted on witness ID testimony when recent studies have shown that witness ID testimony is not the most reliable form of evidence, which is what juries think, but it's the least reliable form of evidence. So anyway, Gary Johnson, he says he wants to legalize marijuana. So does Jill Stein. Well, you know what? They believe that every state has the right to determine what drugs should be legal or not. And they don't want to legalize all these other drugs. I know that every victimless and consensual crime, including drug possession, is unconstitutional. When I'm sworn in, I will be sworn to uphold the Constitution, just like I was when I was sworn in to become a lawyer. So if you're sworn in to uphold the Constitution, what's the first thing I'll do? I'll uphold the Constitution. I'll stop these 10, 11, 12 million wrongful arrests a year. I'll free the 2 million people enslaved enslaved in our jails every year, earning sometimes 10, 12 cents an hour. And then you think that these businesses can compete when they enter into competition? These prisons enter into, and there's companies that employ these slaves. You think that other businesses can compete? No, they go out of business. They all go out of business. Now, anyway, I am the only candidate who knows that these victimless crimes and consensual crimes, like drugs, like sex work, like gambling, like, what else? Well, I was originally against keeping homosexuality crime. When I ran for president the first time 15 years ago, I was the only candidate, and up to this date, I was the only candidate in history to ever run on a platform of legalizing gay and lesbian sex. And straight, quote, deviant sex, what they called it. Let's not get into any details. Anyway, my point is, we have a right. Abortion, they call it crime, these nutcases. Abortion isn't a crime. You know why it's not a crime? Because fetuses are not people. Roe v. Wade was wrongfully decided. Why was it? Why do I say that? Because Roe v. Wade gives human rights to the fetus before it's born, when it reaches, quote, viability. But I'll tell you this, you always hear some of these opponents of quote, abortion, which is just terminating pregnancy. You hear some of these people say, oh, well, in case of chance of risk of life to the mother. Well, I'll tell you this. Every pregnancy is a risk of life to the mother. Every pregnancy carries with it a high chance of death. Certainly much higher chance of death than not being pregnant. Certainly. You know, in the old days, the number one cause of death of women was pregnancy. What do you think? Anyway, pregnancy is another victimless crime. Abortion is another victimless crime. Well, as I said, gambling, sex work. Now you can say, oh my God, what about all these enslaved sex workers? Yes, I agree. We got to stop the slavery of sex workers. But you know what? We have a constitutional amendment that prevents slavery. Therefore, if anyone's enslaved, you go to the authorities and say, I'm being enslaved. But you know what? Because sex work is on the books as a crime, if a sex worker is raped, they don't come forward. If they're raped. And they have, and you know what? And they don't come forward if they're enslaved. And on another level, we have a right to do with our bodies as we wish, as long as we're not hurting anyone else. That means if somebody wants to pay someone else for sex, they have that right. If someone else wants to buy sex from someone else, they have that right. If somebody wants to only work 1 hour a day or 1 hour a week instead of 100 hours a day or a week, a week, whatever. You get my point. We have that right. As Thomas Jefferson said, the legitimate powers of government extend only to such acts as are injurious to others. In other words, if I'm not hurting someone, the government doesn't have a right to get in my face about it. Anyway, as far as all these overseas wars, look, those are unconstitutional too. Those are definitely unconstitutional. Why? In our Constitution, it says that to declare war, Congress has to pass an act of war. They haven't done that since World War II. Now, I do oppose all these current wars. Well, you might say, well, doesn't Jill Stein oppose all these wars? Yes, I'll give you that. Sounds like she does. We both agree you have to close all the overseas bases and bring all the troops home. On the other hand, I want to bring them all home and keep the military budget high and have them all guard us here. I want to repurpose these police and have them guarding us here. We need to have them protecting us instead of just, prosecuting us for victimless crimes. Or if the police are busy finding real criminals, great. We can have the military protecting us here. That's fine. And yes, we might even need to, double the number of military We very well might. And they might have to go undercover. Very well might, to protect us here. Now, the other way, of course, is to arm the citizens of our nation to protect ourselves against terrorism and against other criminals. There has been a correlation of the higher percentage of people arm themselves, the more the crime goes down. It's just a correlation. It can't be proved or not what causes it, but it's certainly a correlation. Now, you can say, oh my God, don't we have enough crimes in this, gun killings in this country? First of all, 2/3 of all gun deaths are not homicides, they're suicides. And if those people don't want to, can't get guns anymore, they'll still commit suicide other ways. Now, oh yes, I forgot, and I want to legalize suicide and assisted suicide. I mean, that's important. We have a right to do with our bodies as we wish, including killing ourselves. Now, however, should we have, suicide prevention hotlines? Yes. Counseling? Yes. 24/7. That's very important. I mean, I know we have some hotlines, but we need this more. We need more and more and more of this. And as I said, for jobs for everyone, that'll prevent a lot of suicides. Definitely. Prevent a lot of drug overdoses. Accidental. And of course, you have a lot of people who think that they're taking, some synthetic opioid, and instead they take fentanyl, which is 100 times stronger. So that's how you have these accidental overdoses. Or you have somebody who says that they're giving you cocaine and they're giving you meth, and then you die. I mean, whatever. There's all these options. Now, by the way, even though I want to legalize all drugs, that doesn't mean I want people on all these drugs. No. I mean, I really don't. And I really don't believe that all these people who are on these prescription drugs, even, when they have, I believe that probably, 90% of the people on prescription drugs don't need to be on those. I mean, we are drugging millions of children on Ritalin, which is just synthetic cocaine, for God's sake. It's horrible. There's other ways to treat, children not being able to focus in school. For instance, make school more interesting. Spend more time with children. Have better classes. Have stand-up desks. Have more recess. By the way, about education, the number one way to fix that? We don't have, as Trump says, bad education in this country. No, we have a divergence. When those schools we spend a lot of money on, those in the rich neighborhoods, the kids do well. Those in the poor neighborhoods, where they spend less on the education, those children do badly. Why? Because we have our education funding tied to property taxes, which is a fucking crime. That is a crime. Just like having, how many people are starving in this country? 50 million. You know how many starve to death every day worldwide? 22,000 people are starving to death every day, mostly children in this world. We have 1 billion starving people in this world. We have another billion probably homeless. Look, we need to do economic development in our nation. We need to do economic development worldwide. This is how you make everybody prosperous. You make everyone prosperous. This is not a competition. We are all in this together in this world. We have to look out for each other. That's good economic policy. It's good moral policy. And you know what? The only reason why God lets us stay here, and even for one more second, is to help save the earth, save the people of the earth, save the animals of the earth, and save the plants of the earth. This is right now, I'm several hours into a fast for Yom Kippur, for the Jewish Day of Repentance. I take this very seriously. The only reason God lets us live every second is to help each other. And if we all help each other at the same time, every second, we will bring about peace on earth and have heaven on earth. Now, you can say, oh my God, well, what about what's going on right now with ISIS overseas? Look, it's horrible. It's horrible. But the proper response to 9/11 was not with guns. It was not. I mean, yes, we tried to take out bin Laden and his troops, but that was only, about 100 or 200 or something. Now it's blossomed. It has, because the more that you shoot, then you kill a lot of innocent people, mostly innocent people. Then you piss off all these innocent people. Then people pick up arms against you. Also, when you invade a nation, they pick up arms against you. And, that's just how it is. So, and obviously in this country right now, a lot of these people responding, a lot of these people who have been involved in these horrible, horrible, horrible terrorist attacks overseas and in this nation are those who were inspired by ISIS. Yes, some have been sent overseas. None have, thank God, hit here yet, and hopefully ever. hopefully ever. But the main way to make people love you is to act loving towards them, towards everyone in the world. Now, how do we fight ISIS? I don't know. I can tell you this. For the last 15 years, we've been fighting overseas, which is in 5 years more than World War I and II put together, and it hasn't done any good. Hasn't done any good. The more we fight, the more they kill us over there. We have 7,000 of our troops who have been killed, another 1 million wounded, with physical injuries, with brain injuries, with depression, with post-traumatic stress disorder. I mean, it's horrible. We've killed probably or led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people overseas, maybe over 1 million. We don't know. They don't count. We don't know. The British Lancet study extrapolated to today could mean even 2 million. We don't know. Although they weren't just counting killed, they were counting, cause the death of, which would mean, increased death rate in the country, which would mean deaths caused by ISIS too. I mean, see, that's the thing. We set off this civil war in the Muslim world accidentally. I wasn't involved. I fought against, want to talk about good judgment? I fought against going into this war in Iraq, and unlike Trump, I was marching in the streets and blogging about it all the time. It was part of my campaign. And I was even blogging and talking to everybody I knew. I didn't know there were marches, or I would have joined them, against the war in Afghanistan. I knew that was not the proper response to 9/11. I have better judgment than Hillary, better judgment than Trump, better judgment than all of these people. By the way, I even have better judgment than Jill Stein, because I know that we need to militarize our police to protect us against terrorists, not to be used in this, quote, war on drugs, which is a war on us, not to be used to silence our peaceful protests. Hell no. But to protect us, to protect us, to protect us. Now, the other problem is, I think I alluded to this, but you see, when you make Jill and Gary still want to keep most of these other drugs illegal. Therefore, you still have these elevated drug prices. Therefore, you still have all the crime. Also, I want to do away with prescription drugs also for the same reason. We have a right to do to our bodies as we wish. Does the government have a role in protecting us? Sure, an optional role. In other words, they can test drugs, and then we can use them. We can use their test. We can go by their tests if we want. We should also have private companies like Consumer Reports testing drugs, and doctors. But if a doctor prescribes me a drug, the government should, have to pay for it as part of my health plan. That's just how it goes. It's just how it is. But we have a right to do to our bodies as we wish. And no state and no federal government has a right to steal our human rights. Now, you can say, well, what about most of these prisoners are in jail under state law? Well, you know what? The Bill of Rights, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights applies to the states through the 14th Amendment. And I would say, look, states are violating our human rights, and I'm going to apply our human rights, and I'm going to free everybody wrongfully enslaved in jail for victimless crimes. Day one, I'm president. Day one. End these wars day one. You want a war? Have Congress vote on it. You won't vote for any more wars. I promise you, we're sick of these wars. Is there anything we can do to help these people? Yes, we can arm the enemies of ISIS, especially the Kurds. Not the Turks, who are attacking the Kurds now. We've been arming the Kurds for decades. They say they're going to use it against ISIS, and they use the arms against the Kurds, when the Kurds are the best fighters, the number one fighters against ISIS. By the way, it's not just ISIS that's the problem. First of all, number one, we could have Saudi Arabia will want to go after ISIS, even though they're both Sunni. Iran will want to go after ISIS because they're Shia versus Sunni. Iraq will want to go after ISIS because they're now tied up with Iran. Believe me, ISIS will be shrinking or gone soon. But I'll tell you this, we have a problem. We have a problem. James Comey, the head of the FBI, said recently that the more we crush ISIS over there, the more they're going to come after us to get us here. That's a fucking problem. Now, the solution is not, as Trump said, to ban all Muslims. No. Why? Most of these people are running for their lives from these ISIS people, and most of them, are very good people. And they're just being murdered and tortured every day. I mean, that's horrible. It's horrible. You can't just let them all die just because they're Muslim. That's horrible. They're people. We have a responsibility to them because they're people. But do we need to do extreme vetting? Yes. Yes. If that takes a year or two, fine. Then we have a place for them for a year or two while we extremely vet them. That's how it is. Now, we also have to stop all automatic entry of visas into this country. Why? Because if you're a terrorist and you want to enter, you would come in through visas. Now, you could say, oh my God, well, why do we need walls? Why do we need walls? Because if we stop the visa program, we stop allowing we should really allow no tourists in automatically. We should do a quick visa, search of them, which that would block most potential terrorists from outside our country from entering. So then that's why you need walls, because I know that no terrorists have entered using, through the southern or northern borders yet. And we want to make it never. That's why you want walls. Now, we need more immigrants in this country. That's true. Why? Well, there's 7 billion people in the world. Our country has 320 million people. If we want to survive economically, part of that is we need more people working. Now, the other thing we need is, when they started Social Security retirement, you had 45 workers per retiree. Now, you know what that number is? 3. And economists predict that within a few years, it'll be 2. Meanwhile, the number of people in the world is going up by about 1 billion every 10 years. So if we want to compete, we're going to need more people in this country. That's just how it is. But we do want, fair trade, not just free trade, but fair trade. We want a strong minimum wage so that, not just manufacturing jobs pay well. About 90% of the jobs in this country are service jobs now, not goods or manufacturing jobs. So how do you deal with that? You make minimum wage a living wage. That means $15 to $20 an hour. I've been pushing $20 an hour. This is my 3rd time running for president. Ever since my first campaign, 15 years, I've been pushing $20 an hour. Why? That's the amount needed to raise a family. And nobody in this country should have to not have a family because the rich won't pay their fair share. Well, Hillary says she wants to have the rich pay their fair share, right? She says that all the time, right? Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. She wants to raise the tax rate on the wealthiest Americans a few percentage points on income. Well, you know what I say? The wealthiest 1% in our country, the wealthiest 1% of the population. You know what percent of the nation's net worth? The nation's net worth is at least 125 trillion, maybe 250 trillion, maybe even a quadrillion for all we know, but it's estimated at least 125 trillion. So, you know what percentage of the net worth of our nation the wealthiest 1% of the population owns? 45%. That's what the most recent study I've seen says. Maybe 35, maybe 40, probably 45%. The wealthiest 400 people in our nation own the same amount of money as the poorest 150 million. Listen, they don't need all that money, number one. Number two, the only reason they're able to earn a dime is because of all the rest of us. Yes, we all are in this together. They couldn't earn a dime if it wasn't for the rest of us. And a lot of them have that amount because they haven't paid taxes ever like Trump. And it's not right when you have 50 million people starving in this country, when you have tens of millions homeless, when you have, or sleeping on the couch of friends or relatives, when you have 1 billion people starving in this world, when you have another 1 billion homeless probably. I'm not saying we should just feed them all, although if we have to at first, sure. And part of what we should have besides jobs is a guaranteed minimum income. If we can't give people a job in this country and we should give them a guaranteed minimum income. And no, for the rest of the world, it shouldn't just be us. It should be all the rest of the wealthy people in the world paying for this too. But if they don't, yes, it should be us. Why? We have a moral responsibility, and also it will help us too. Because when you have a wealthy world, they'll be able to buy our goods and we'll also become richer. So both out of, moral goodness and out of economic pure good sense and out of, you do something for them, then they, respect you and love you instead of if you're shooting them up, they hate you. This is obvious. Okay, I love you all. Let's make the world joyous again and a place of joy and love for everyone now and forever. Please. It's up to us. Please write me in and tell your friends you want to write me in and forward this video. And maybe we'll get somewhere. Fred Schultz, JD. SCHULTZ. Fred Schultz, JD for president. Please write me in. Love you all so much. Thank you so much for all you do every day. I know you give it your all. And I know most of you are helping other people as much as you can every minute, and including a lot of wealthy people. I want to add that, Warren Buffett just today, the other day, revealed that he donates over $2 billion a year in charity. We call it tzedakah, meaning being a tzaddik, a holy person. Mark Zuckerberg just, several months ago announced that he's giving away 99% of his net worth to causes that will benefit the world. I mean, you have a lot of wealthy people who view this the same way as me. It's not just that all these rich people want to keep it. No. A lot of them, the reason why they don't like to pay taxes, but instead give a lot to charity, unlike Trump, who doesn't even do that, or he'd release his taxes. But a lot of rich people, the reason they don't like to pay taxes is they know that it's all going to wars and jail for victimless crimes that they don't like. Now, speaking of which, and they know that these are wrongful. Speaking of which, in the last election and in all previous elections, the voting in the presidential election tops out at around 50% of eligible voters. I mean, that's horrible. By the way, these whole electronic voting booths I've been fighting against forever. Now it turns out that the Russians are talking about hacking them. They're trying to hack them. 20 states have reported the Russians have tried to hack them. Years and years and years ago, I said, no, you can't go to electronic. I said, you should go to these forms where you fill in a little dot, and then that's both verifiable and unhackable. Now all these people agree with me. All these computer people agree with me. Also, I've been saying forever, we've got to stop this mass surveillance. That means you can't allow the sale of phones that have sealed batteries or computers that have sealed batteries. Why? Because anything with a sealed battery can be used to hack you. But also, it's much bigger. You hear all about this NSA. You know it's much bigger than the NSA hacking? DEA hacking. It's called Project Horizon, I think it's called. The DEA hacking. Look, this is horrible. They have no right to just tap us and follow us and listen to everything we do every second. And you can say, oh my God, well, how can we catch terrorists? You watch, first of all, we got to stop them being able to use the internet. But as I said, number one is if we're out there, spreading love in the world and wealth, and joy, most of them will stop attacking us. However, will there still maybe be some potential terrorists, both inspired by Islam or white supremacy or whatever crazy reason? I mean, yes, you have crazy people out in the world too. And, the best way is we certainly need to stop, they're being allowed to use the internet to spread hate. I mean, that's true. But most people, look, you got to have people just out there looking, if you see something, say something. And that's it. And then they start investigating. I mean, that's the best way. But just spying on all of us, no. And, I'll give you another reason. If the terrorists know that we're using the internet to spy on them, then they'll stop using the internet. If they know that we're not using the internet, then they'll use the internet to communicate. But either way, they'll be communicating. You don't even need a plot. I mean, we had terrorist attacks in this country by anarchists 100 years ago before they even had telephones. They just had a meeting, and then they spread out around the country and set off a few bombs. Kill a few dozen people, the whole country goes crazy. I mean, you don't even need bombs. You can just use knives or cars, God forbid. I mean, you don't need bombs. You don't need guns. You don't need the internet. You don't need telephones to do this. Where there's a will, there's a way. But the best way we can stop this is, as I said, making the whole world prosperous. That'll help to make the whole world love us. And, free healthcare, including free mental help for all who need it and want it. And, we'll be a long ways towards making this world a better, safer place. Okay, I love you all. I better stop this now. I hope you've all been watching. Love you all. Talk to you soon. And have a good fast if you're fasting. Happy New Year. Let's make this the best year ever. Vote for Fred Schultz, please. Love you all. And tell your friends. And then also, I didn't tell you, please run for office. Run for office. Even as a write-in, we're starting something called the Love Party. You can run for office. You'll be much better than all these other candidates. Trust me. Okay, love you all. Thank you all so much. Remember, I will stand up for the Constitution. I'll free the slaves. I'll stop all these victimless crimes. I'll stop most of these murders. I'll stop all these wars. And we'll start taxing Trump. Okay, love you all. Let's do this. Thanks. Please write in Fred Schultz for president. Love you. Thank you. Bye.